You're listening to Just My Show, your number one source for pop culture.
I think by now everyone in the world knows Mad Libs, probably done them at least once, but most people probably don't know that the whole thing actually started in a TV writer's room. You want to tell us how it all came to be?
Well, actually, it happened in my apartment in New York. Eric, I was writing a honeymoon script, and I was struggling. I didn't want to use the classic description of a person with a bulbous nose. I was trying to find a substitute for bulbous. And Roger Price, who's my dear friend and an extraordinarily gifted human being, was in the kitchen, and he's an excellent cook, and I think he was creating leftovers at the moment. And I said, I need an adjective. And before I could further define it, he said, naked and clumsy. And I started laughing because a naked nose was an interesting alliteration and something significant about it. And a clumsy nose was appropriate as well. And I was laughing, and he wondered why I was laughing. And he came out, and he agreed this was funny. And suddenly, like I guess most discoveries, we realized that by accident, we had created something unique. And we developed it that given day, which, if memory serves me, was around 1953, and never did much about it except play at parties in the hopes of meeting ladies. We were both unattached at the time. And it wasn't until 5 years later that we had the name Mad Libs came to us. And suddenly we realized that was saleable. I don't remember why we thought of it. I remember where we did. It was in Sardi's restaurant, which then was a very important place to be seen and also, incidentally, to eat. And I have no, maybe it was on the menu. Maybe it was a dish and we were not good in pronouncing Italian. But anyway, once we had the title Mad Libs, we felt we had something we could approach publishers with. There wasn't a single publisher interested in Mad Libs. The ones who liked us condescendingly sent us to game producers and manufacturers. And we were turned down there, referred to publishers. So Roger and I decided to publish it ourselves, totally naive and unknowing about publishing. Matter of fact, when the printer called and asked where he should deliver the books, we thought he kept them. And ultimately, Roger's living room in a Central Park West apartment became our warehouse. We just moved all the furniture out, and in went 14,000 books, so we found a way of getting rid of them.
And what was the big break that really got Mad Libs on the map and national?
Well, there were two aspects. A publisher, Ian Ballantyne, said he would distribute them for us. And he did, and he did extremely well. He wasn't interested in continuing it, but he was proof positive that it sold. And at that time, I was the head writer and director of the Steve Allen Show. And I talked to Steve about it. He thought it would be a marvelous way to introduce the guests, that have the audience supply the words, and then he would incorporate them in the already prepared introduction. And it became a fixture on the Allen Show. And the publicity it generated allowed us to continue to publish it, and Simon & Schuster became the distributor of the book, a rare and probably at that time unprecedented happening.
So we had you on to talk about Mad Libs. We talk about TV a lot on this show, so we can't have you on and not ask you a few questions about TV.
Well, please.
Most people, especially from shows from when you were starting out, people sort of have an image of what they saw on the Dick Van Dyke Show as far as what goes on with TV writers. How close, say, with Steve Allen, is that to what we saw on the Alan Brady Show?
It's very close. Carl Reiner was a friend of mine, and he wrote that show. We were both spending a summer on Fire Island, and he didn't tell me what he was writing, but suddenly he one day had a full script in his hand, and he was on his way to New York, to the city, and he said, "You're going to love this. It's what you do." And he wouldn't tell me what it was, and I didn't know what of the things I have done or did do was the subject matter. But I didn't know he only had one script in his hand, And I said, do you have a copy of it? In those days, it was not easy. It wasn't Xerox, etc. And they said, no. I said, you can't take it. If you're going to leave it anywhere, you got to have a copy. I literally forced him back and forced him to type a second copy so that he'd be safe in case the first disappeared. And in the course of that process, he told me it was about a head writer on a comedy show. And Carl, having worked the Caesar show, knew the situation. That show was unique in that they all worked in concert together. And then only when they decided who would write what did they separate. On the Honeymooners and the Allen show, we functioned as teams. We met to clear storylines with each other so there wouldn't be a conflict. Then originally on the Honeymooners, Marvin Marks and Walter Stone and Sizzle Lincoln and I alternated shows. And then as it got progressively harder, another writer was added, Andy Russell, who helped with stories, helped both teams. And then when we went in our final year, we divided into 3 teams and added a writer, Herb Finn. So Andy and Herb worked together, Marvin and Walter worked together, and Sid and I worked together on what was called the Classic 39. So it varies from show to show as to how the writers approach the assignment.
And I want to ask you about that. You said the Classic 39. This TV, then this classic TV, and then this TV that's sort of in its own category, and that's the Honeymooners, because not only do fans like it, I think it's often like you can tell a lot of people that are in the business sort of looked at the Honeymooners as a major influence. But with all that said, there really were a relatively small number of episodes by current TV standards, especially. How, after all these years in such a relatively small number of episodes, is it as big a part of our pop culture as it's become?
I think Jackie had the answer when people asked a comparable question. He said, it's truly funny. And most shows can't say that. It earned its laughter. It was performed in front of, I think the audience was around 3,000. It was done live. It was happening at the moment. The laughter is genuine. There's no track. There's no sweetening. And it was the battle, and we kept winning it each Saturday night, or when we were on the air. When the show was an hour, when it was half hour, we were in a theater, but it was still done live. And I've said many times, if any of us had known it was going to be a classic, we would have written it better.
For more, go to www.justmyshow.com.